First impressions are always important in games, but especially for the Zelda series. With how centered the games are around their different scenery, areas, and tone of their locations, all the games have to make a great first impression of these things in order to keep players hooked for the rest of the game. Today, I wanted to look into these first areas and rate every starting area in the 3D Zelda games. If you love Zelda stuff, you should subscribe because I post daily Zelda shorts, weekly Zelda long-form videos, and also stream Zelda content. I also now have a Green Man Gaming affiliate link, so if you're interested in supporting the channel, use my link in the description for great deals on PC, Mac, and console games. Alright, let's get started. Let's go over some things to get out of the way first. I'll be rating these areas on a scale of 1 to 10, similarly to my video on Zelda combat tutorials, but this time I'll be taking things like how fun the areas are to explore, how much the intro shows you about the game, and just the overall aesthetic and vibe of the place. For games that start not inside of Link's house or in a starting village like Majora's Mask, I'll just do everything up until the first loading zone. Alright, let's go. Okay, for the first 3D Zelda game, Ocarina of Time, we start off in Kokiri Forest. You start in Link's house and leave after a cutscene that's just way too long, but anyway, the actual area is pretty cool. There's a shop that shows you how rupees work, there's a terrible combat tutorial, there's a sword, a shield, and a couple of other items and shops to collect from. It also doesn't take too long to get through. The characters are pretty vibrant and the areas are pretty cool as well. My only real criticism with this area is that the aesthetic doesn't really set the tone for the rest of the game. There are some happy sections, especially as Child Link, and the Temple of Time helps set a tone for Adult Link sections, but if we're looking at the game's overall tone and saying that Kokiri Forest sets it, I just don't really feel like that's true. I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. There are a few things to improve upon and the tone doesn't really work for the whole game in my opinion, but it's still pretty great. Alright, time for the sequel to the last game, Majora's Mask. The first place you actually control Link is in the forest connecting Hyrule and Termina. Since there isn't really an established town and stuff in this place, we're just gonna check up until the first loading zone. This place sucks as an intro. It's way too short and the only things that the place shows you how to do is obviously how to move and jump across gaps, and maybe how to use your sword and collect rupees if you decide to cut grass. That's it. This whole not really having a tutorial is a big problem for Majora's Mask in my opinion if it's your first Zelda game. This gets a 2 out of 10 just because of the few things it teaches you, and I guess the aesthetic is pretty decent. For Wind Waker, the intro is Outset Island, and this place is absolutely excellent as an intro place. There are different environments in the beach, mainland, and later woods, setting the tone for the diverse locations featured in this title while also making the land fun to explore. Along with this, the story here is also a little bit silly, but also has a lot of serious parts, which sets another tone for the game, and the intro doesn't stretch on for too long. There's a great combat tutorial, there's a lot of stuff to do, different items to buy and get, different ways to make rupees, and the characters are especially vibrant and interesting. I give this a 9 out of 10, as my only issue is that there aren't as expansive as a shop as some other games' areas. Also, you can throw pigs. Keeping on the high notes, we go on to Twilight Princess. Many people don't really like this section of the game because it's pretty long, but there are a lot of good things about it. You get a shop, an expansive and fun town to explore, vibrant characters, activities, a combat tutorial, and best of all, you get to pet the dogs. Though some might call this intro boring and say that it stretches for too long, I'd honestly say that it's really fun to go fishing and herd goats and do stuff like that in my opinion. I will admit that it can be a bit confusing and slow/stretch on for a lot of time, but overall, I think that it's pretty good. I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10 just because of the length. Also, you can pet the dogs, just reminding. Getting on to Phantom Hourglass, we get to keep on the high notes. This location is pretty similar to Wind Waker's Outset Island, but there are some notable differences. There's a cave of sorts instead of the woods, which is fine, I like both the same anyways. I would say that there's a bit less to do here, which is fair because the DS had the power of its school desk's static electricity, but I overall just feel like the characters around this village are a bit less vibrant than Wind Waker's and have less personality, and I didn't really feel any connection to them. The area is pretty nice, however, with a beach, a field, a town, and a cave. I think this place is overall pretty nice. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Now for Spirit Tracks. This tutorial is pretty decent. It teaches you movement, how the train works, how to collect rupees, and a few other things. Overall, this is just the basic standard for what I feel like an intro section really should be. It's very middle of the line, so I'd give it a very solid 6.5 out of 10. Time for Nat 13's favorite Zelda game, Skyward Sword. This intro is literally perfect. There are many different locations to explore like Nighttime Skyloft, the cave, obviously normal Skyloft, and a bit of the upper part of Skyloft. The intro is fun and not too long, and there are many shops scattered throughout the place with many different things to do and get, and a wide variety of items and characters to interact with. The story is also pretty good up here. There are a few side quests you can do up here as well before even leaving the area for the first time. Overall, I just thought this intro was just super fun as a whole and great quality. Yet another reason why this game needs more recognition. 10 out of 10. Now for A Link Between Worlds, and this one is kinda rough. There isn't really an intro area per se, and you basically just get into into the whole overworld map as soon as you leave your house, so the only place to explore really is Link's house, and it's kind of a given that the only thing this place teaches you is to sometimes collect rupees and move around. 1 out of 10. Triforce Heroes has Hytopia, and I'd barely even count this as an intro to be honest. It has vibrant characters I guess, and you can move around a bunch to learn about movement, but it's missing variety in locations and the story here is really weird. 3 out of 10. Time for the big open air games. Starting with Breath of the Wild, I'd place this game start on the Great Plateau pretty well. It has a very wide variety of stuff to do, it shows you the game's overall tone and how some combat works, and the story here is just excellent. Overall, I'd put it as a solid 7 out of 10 because I just don't feel like there's enough variety in the areas and there's literally one character up here. Pretty decent though. Okay, Tears of the Kingdom. I think this tutorial is basically the same situation as Breath of the Wild tutorial, but there's just a lot more variety of characters and locations, like you get a cave and talking robots now. Though I like this a bit more than Breath of the Wild, and I love the aesthetic of the Sky Islands, it's not much of an improvement. It's still a 7.5 out of 10 for me. And with that, that is every Zelda game's intro section ranked on a scale of 1 to 10. If you enjoyed, feel free to use my Green Man Gaming link or subscribe to support the channel. Let me know what you think of these games' intros in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.